Going on, Islander fans? Welcome to another episode of Isles Talk. My name is Paul Kreischer, and I am your host for this evening. Unfortunately, Gary and Joe are both on injured reserve. We'll call them injured reserve for right now, and you're stuck with me all night. Sorry, well, at least for the next hour. So, welcome to the show, everyone, and we're going to get into a couple of pieces that are going to fit what could possibly be a very big picture for next season. And to start off on that, a couple of weeks ago, uh, when, not necessarily announced it, but when, Joe, Gary, and I pretty much agreed that the Islanders were going to be out of the playoffs probably after that loss to Edmonton uh, a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago. There was quite a bit of fanfare saying, play the kids, play the kids, play the kids. Season's over, play the kids, and let's see what happens. And as much as I appreciate that, I understand where they're coming from. You play the kids, you see what they can do, you grow for next year. It was still too early, still far too early to just call up all the kids, especially Bridgeport, to see what the Islanders really had. You needed to see what you still had in front of you in terms of the veterans, the players signed to long-term contracts, the players who are unrestricted free agents if they were going to attract any other teams, which they have, and we'll get into that later. But you needed to see some kind of progress from the team because, let's face it, 13-game homestand, COVID, a reckless schedule. I'm sorry, a 13-game road trip, a reckless schedule, a ton of injuries. And we were all wondering, when is this team finally going to show up? Well, it seems like they did, especially the last 3 games, first 3-game winning streak, and I think since January. And one of the things that I wanted to see was how this team was going to perform after games 42 and after the Islanders went 0-7-3 way back when, in the first 20 games of the season. So I've got those numbers for you. And for right now, it's not bad if you're the Islanders. Since game 41, the Islanders have gone 7-6-2, which isn't bad. But the important thing is they're getting healthier. They've been going on a winning streak now. And they look like the team we saw last year. So if they continue this pace, if they were to continue this pace, you're looking at an 87-point pace, which is what I wanted to see. Now, the Islanders have 4 games left before the trade deadline. I was hoping for this second half Islander team to get as close to a 90-point pace as possible. Because if they did that, it kind of validates the injuries. It validates the schedule. It validates COVID. It validates everything that went wrong this season, at least for me. And the promising stat or record that I wanted to put out is that since going 0-7-3, the Islanders have gone 19-14-3. That's a 93-point pace, folks. So for me, there's more positivity heading into next season than, instead of the idea of blowing up the team, playing the kids the entire time. I don't think we need to see that. Granted, come, beginning of April, sure, bring up the kids from Bridgeport. Why not? That's okay. But at least for the rest of this week, you want to see the Islanders win as much as possible. It's not necessarily playing for pride. They are playing for pride, but you really want to see this team come together, build their confidence up as a team, and really, really look forward for next season. Because as of right now, I don't have the Islanders making the playoffs. I hope to. I hope I'm wrong. But for right now, I don't see the Islanders making the playoffs. But for them to make a push like this is is great. It's what we needed to see as fans. So that's the state of the Islanders at this point. They're doing well. Um, Believe it or not, guys, they're on pace. If you play the law of averages, they're on for 218 goals. Last year they were on pace for 224. They're that close to last year's numbers. I mean, Kyle Palmieri, he's on pace for 26 goals. He's on pace for 26 goals now. He woke up, you know, daddy power, as Noah Dobson put it. Zach Parisi's on pace for 12 goals. Honestly, guys, and gals, that's where I had Parisi. Anywhere from 12 to 17 goals. Anders Lee is back up to 32. Noah Dobson is tearing up on a pace for 15. Casey Zizekas is as normal. And, Josh Bailey's on pace for 9. And Josh Bailey could still go on a tear and get close to 13, which is his average. So, for me, let them keep winning. Because if you were watching the show last week, it doesn't matter whether they finish 9th or 15th. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter where they're going to finish, because this 2022 draft is deep into talent. If there's a player that falls out of the top 10 and lands in the Islanders' laps, that could very well happen. So for me, let the Islanders win. Let Lou see what he has as an organization, and then he can plan accordingly. So for right now, even with all the winning that the Islanders have been doing, they only moved up one spot. They only moved up one spot in the NHL. They're literally, what are they, 23rd? I think they're 23rd. Yeah, they're on pace to finish somewhere in the 23rd spot. Yep, there they are. So you're still looking at a top 10, top 11 pick. But again, the Islanders are showing you, especially right now, that this season is a write-off. A lot of things happen, and that's part of hockey. It's part of life. Currently, it's part of life. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with, the COVID issues anymore. And people can go see those games every day, and we get back to some kind of normalcy. But it's nice to know that when the Islanders are healthy and ready to go, you're looking like a playoff. They're looking like a playoff team. So all that is good. And again, you take away the empty net goals. Okay. Sorokin and Varlamov together are on pace to only give up 205 goals. That's big. That is huge. And the guys and I have been doing the offense for Varlamov. That's gone up. In the last couple of weeks, Varlamov was only getting less than 2 goals a game. Now he's up to 2.2, which is he's getting more than that, but that's now his average. If that goes up to 2.5, you're winning more games. And when the Islanders have Sorokin in that, the Islanders are actually averaging close to 3 goals a game. Okay, there you go. When the defense, and again, this was key. This was key again for the Islanders' success. When the Islanders have 2 points or more scored by defensemen, they're 26-6. Okay, let me repeat that. 26-6. When defensemen score 2 points or more in a game, and when they're leading after 2, they basically shut you out. It's like last year. They're like 21. They're 21, but they have to be leading after the second. So that's the state of the Islanders. They're almost there. They're almost there. When they're healthy, they're almost unbeatable. And we're going to get into the discussion of, are the Islanders the best team not making the playoffs this year? Okay. And I'm going to let you guys interact. I came up with a ranking of 5 teams that are good, but they may not make the playoffs this year. And those teams are the Islanders, the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Dallas Stars. Okay, so you have your choices here because, again, the season's not over for some of these teams, but there is a very good chance that some of these teams may actually miss the playoffs. So, again, this will tie into a bigger picture. For me, from the Jets, Islanders, Vegas, Oilers, and Stars, my number 5 team to be good but not good enough, the best non-playoff team would be the Winnipeg Jets. They've had some turmoil this year. They've had some ups and downs. I think with a small retooling, they probably could get back in, but they're in a very tough division. And they've been good for a little while, but again, they may need more. Maybe if they were in a different division, maybe even in a different conference, they might be able to get in. But I think the Jets are going to need some reconstruction going into next season. I don't know how you guys feel about that. My number 4 team, the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Oilers may still make the playoffs, but I think if Vegas makes a move, I think Vegas beats out Edmonton. I do. I think they beat out Edmonton. The Oilers are right there. They're in 8th place. They're behind the Stars. I don't think the Oilers would be in the playoffs right now if Vegas got their act together. I wholeheartedly believe that. Vegas should be in a playoff spot, period. And they're not. Moving forward here, doesn't matter if Leonard and Riley Smith are on injured reserve. That team's too full. That team is too full to be in 8th place. Sorry, don't go for that. My 3rd place team, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. They really shouldn't. The Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars are, again, another team that is almost on the high road here. They're down to 1 or 2 years left. They know their time, their window of opportunity is almost up. If Vegas was better, if Vancouver didn't have their hiccups, I think Vancouver would be beating out Dallas this year as well. If the Anaheim Ducks didn't have contract issues, I think the Ducks could have held on to beat out the Stars. The Stars, if you thought the Islanders were old, Dallas is even older. They're also getting up there. But it goes to show you that, you need to have a perfect storm for some of these teams to get in. And in all honesty, I think Dallas is one of them. My number 2 team, who should be in the playoffs for right now, but probably won't, are the Islanders. Lots of injuries. Lee had that torn ACL almost a year ago. Took him 9 months to recover. JG Pajot had hand surgery June of 21. That took a few months to recover. Palmieri played hurt. I think we all know that now. Varley was injured at the beginning of the season. He didn't have a really good camp. Ryan Pulock's ankle injury, Matt Martin's injury, it all added up. And again, we've talked about the road trips. We've talked about COVID. They're that one team that needed one heck of a start to catch up to the Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins. They didn't get it. And then my number one team, good enough to make the playoffs, but don't, in that category, are the Vegas Golden Knights. They are. The Vegas Golden Knights, if they miss the playoffs, oh boy, especially after trading for Jack Eichel, sorry. That's a big, big blow up. Edmonton missing the playoffs does not shock me. Dallas missing the playoffs does not shock me. Winnipeg missing the playoffs, not really. The Islanders was a little bit of a surprise, but Vegas is an absolute shock. Okay. And that's where we're going to get into the trade deadline in a little bit, because we got some stuff to talk about ahead of time. But before we get into the trade deadline, let's talk about Matt Barzal. Now, going through this process of watching this team play, whether the older guys can still do it or whatnot, Mathew Barzal was actually, shall we say, out of commission for a little while, and the team started to click, right? The team started doing really, really good. And there was a lot of wondering going on in social media on whether or not Barzal fit with the Islanders. Should the Islanders trade Barzal before his contract runs out? You know, what should we do with Mathew Barzal? For me, Mathew Barzal shouldn't even be a topic. That's a mindset that if you were living on Long Island and Nassau Coliseum was your home still, and you had the same financial problems, yes, then you're thinking about trading Mathew Barzal, because you just went to the Cup semifinals 2 years in a row. You got nowhere else to go. Start a rebuild. That I could understand if we were still playing at Nassau Coliseum. That's not happening. You're at UBS Arena. You're in a state-of-the-art arena. You have a state-of-the-art practice facility, and you're in New York, but you're not in New York. The Islanders have the money to make Mathew Barzal happy. What fans need to switch is that if Mathew Barzal isn't fitting with the system when he really is, everyone else is going on the cylinders, but Barzal is not. It's because there's so much talent in Mathew Barzal that there really isn't anyone on this team who can have, say, a hockey IQ and the actual physical talent to play with Mathew Barzal. For example, the perfect person to play with Mathew Barzal could actually be Zach Parise of 10 years ago. Okay, you give me a 27-year-old Zach Parise with a 25-year-old Mathew Barzal, yes, please. You put Parise on a line with Barzal and someone like Lee, whoever, that's a line that you're looking for. Okay, so if Matt Barzal isn't working, then the Islanders need to give Mathew Barzal all the help he can get on a new line. Because if you get a scoring winger who can play that two-way game on one line with Anders Lee, you're getting the team's best defense on them every shift. What happens then? The other 2, 3, 4 lines on this Islander squad who have all been playing together for forever now, they're all going to pick apart these other teams. They're going to pick away at all these other defenses. They're going to do that grinding defensive first style. They're going to break every team down. And then when it comes down to it, Matt Barzal's line is going to crush everybody. It's going to be one of the top lines in the NHL. They're not going to score a lot of goals. Well, not as much as you're hoping for, but they're going to score a lot. They're going to play that two-way game. And then you're going to see 3-1, 4-2. But they're not going to be the empty net goals. They're going to be up 3-1. They're going to be up 4-1. When this is all said and done, the other team might get lucky and get another goal. But you're looking at a team right now, as the Islanders are constructed, you're looking at least six players who are on pace to score 15 goals or more on this team. 6. Folks, that's called balance. This is a balanced team when healthy. What the Islanders are missing, instead of the idea of trading Mathew Barzal, you help Mathew Barzal develop and grow even further. The ceiling for Mathew Barzal is not over yet. Barzal has another level. The Islanders don't have a player right now who can match Mathew Barzal. If you're going to come at me with Oliver Wahlstrom, no. Oliver Wahlstrom could be a player to help Mathew Barzal get to another level. Oliver Wahlstrom's not there yet. He's not. That's why Trotz is putting Barzal with Wahlstrom there right now to develop that kind of chemistry. But if the Islanders are still in a win-now situation, and I'm telling you now they are, Oliver Wahlstrom is not going to be the answer for next season if you're going to put him on a line with Mathew Barzal. You have to go out. You have to get yourself another two-way, consistent scoring winger to help out Mathew Barzal. And then you also need to get yourself, the Islanders need to get themselves a puck-moving defenseman, so that way that also takes the load of Barzal going in by himself, crossing the other team's blue line, and then getting crunched by three other opponents. Okay? So it's time to move on from Nassau Coliseum thinking. It's time to move on from blow up the team, because we're never going to do it again. The Islanders have New York Rangers money to spend. Okay? This is not Uniondale anymore. The Islanders have the financial means to make a run at the Stanley Cup every single year. Okay? Now, how do you get that elite winger, as we so say? Well, before we get into Semyon Varlamov, we got to talk about the evolution of Ilya Sorokin. Speaking of making a Stanley Cup run every year and having the financial means, Barzal and Sorokin are going to get paid, folks. Let's not beat around the bush. They're going to get paid. They're going to be paid well, fairly. And with the two of them here, you're going to see a lot of winning from here on out. Joe and I were talking about this off air, and we were talking about how excited we were. I think it was about 4 years ago. Yeah, about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I started noticing that CSKA, Sorokin's old KHL team, they offered him like Carey Price like numbers, like 6 years, $10 million, something to that effect. It was mind blowing. It was right there. He was going to be the face of the KHL for years to come, and he turned it down. He turned it down. He turned down $10 million just to stay in the KHL. Instead, he signed a 2-year deal, and it was at that moment where I was like, "Oh boy, he's really coming over." And lo and behold, 2 years later, Sorokin's here. And Joe and I were having these conversations again, and we were thinking about that next goaltender. And we did come up with, and Gary, we all came up with Varlamov. And at the time, it wasn't a great idea because it was, he wasn't playing that great in Colorado. But with the managerial restructure, the personnel restructure that the Islanders had, it was a golden idea, especially with the two of them, Varlamov and Sorokin, being friends ahead of time. They had actually spent the offseason together a few times as well. So, yeah, we were all confident that the Islanders were going to get Varley, and they did. And what we've seen out of Sorokin right now is right out of Varlamov's contract. It was a 4-year deal. We knew the first 2 years were going to be Varlamov, and the first 2 years were going to be Sorokin's learning curve. Year 3, you're looking at it 50-50 split. And then by year 4, maybe even the tail end. This is the tail end of year 3 for Varlamov here. Sorokin would be taking over. And lo and behold, Sorokin is about ready to take over the reins. Do the Islanders play better with him than Varlamov? Yes, but the players are starting to finally put some goals in the back of the net for Varlamov. So it's not necessarily been on Varlamov this year. The Islanders owe Varlamov a couple of dinners. Let's not make any mistake. Varlamov was absolutely spectacular against the Avalanche a couple of nights ago, and that definitely raised his trade value. But with Ilya Sorokin now pretty much cementing his status as the number one goaltender for the Islanders for the foreseeable future, Semyon Varlamov does become a trade asset for the Islanders. And we knew that going in for a little while. So this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show when I ranked those teams missing the playoffs. But they should, they some of them may make it, but those are the teams not good enough who could be in the playoffs. They missed the playoffs, but they should have. Okay. Well, if you go over those teams again, Dallas, Edmonton, Winnipeg, the Islanders, and Vegas, lo and behold, you've got teams that kind of need goalies right now. Because I can tell you right now, Winnipeg's going to be doing some reshuffling. Connor Hellebuck, I don't think wants to be in Winnipeg anymore, from what I've been hearing. I don't think the Islanders are going to trade for Hellebuck, but is there a market? Excuse me. Excuse me. Is there a market for Varlamov? You bet there is. Who needs a goaltender? Vegas and Dallas. Okay. Robin Lehner may not be back. And the Dallas Stars could use a goaltender. Okay. And let me explain why. Let's say the Vegas Golden Knights make it to the playoffs. They're playing either the Colorado Avalanche or the Calgary Flames. There's no one in Vegas right now who could probably put up a decent stop against the Avs or the Flames. And in all due respect to Dallas's young players, I don't think Dallas is going to be able to stop the Avs or the Flames. So, with the evolution of Ilya Sorokin growing, when is the best time to trade Semyon Varlamov? If you're the Islanders, do you trade him at all? Well, that depends on the return. So, consider this part of water cooler talk, guys. Okay. I can tell you with confidence right now that Semyon Varlamov has attracted 4 different teams, and each of those teams right now, he would accept a trade to. Okay, so you've heard it here first. There are, in fact, 4 teams interested in Semyon Varlamov, and he would be willing to waive his no trade clause to any of those teams if Lou gets a correct deal. Who are those teams? I have no clue. So I will give Joe a little more credit here. He said Varlamov is definitely going to get traded at the trade deadline. I was probably thinking closer to the draft, but if Semyon Varlamov does indeed have 4 teams interested in him, and the Islanders can get themselves a really sweet deal now, I think you have to pull the trigger and do it now and let Sorokin take over and see what happens. Now, I know in the past Joe has said Vegas makes a lot of sense, especially Robin Lehner's out long term. Of course, that means if they do get Semyon Varlamov, that means there could be a longer term issue with Robin Lehner. So, obviously, we don't want to see that. But, Varlamov going to Vegas is a possibility. Vegas needs to be in the playoffs, period. Okay. I'm going to throw in a team here that I think the Islanders could use to bring in that top winger to help Mathew Barzal and to allow Ilya Sorokin to finally shine on his own. And to me, that team are the Dallas Stars. And my friend Randy's going to kill me, but it seems that the Dallas Stars and the Calgary Flames are almost there and set up for a first round matchup. For me, I would probably trade Semyon Varlamov for Braden Holtby. Probably get ourselves a decent player on the Dallas team now, maybe a young prospect in the minors, and call it a day. Call it a trade. Dallas does have a first round pick. I don't think Dallas would give it up. But if Dallas really wants to make an upset, I could see the Stars upsetting the Flames with Semyon Varlamov in net and not Braden Holtby. If Dallas wanted to go that route. So what did the Islanders just do? They can trade Cal Clutterbuck for a draft pick. That's fine. They may keep it. But what the Islanders just did right there is that they got themselves a good player right now with some promise, probably as a mid-liner, could be on a top line. You get yourself a decent prospect, and then you could trade those assets along with a couple of other Islanders if you wanted to, and a salary cap move for another top player to play along with Mathew Barzal next season. So Essentially, what we're trying to say here is it possible that trading Semyon Varlamov for a couple of really good pieces to eventually get us a top tier winger for Mathew Barzal is in the works? I would say yes. It may not come to fruition until the draft, but it's probably going to happen, and it starts with trading in Varlamov. Now, if Dallas doesn't go that route and Semyon Varlamov is not traded, I am definitely taking a look at the St. Louis Blues and Minnesota Wild series. Because if the Wild upset the Blues, I'm throwing Kiefer Bellows, Michael Dal Cole, and Otto Koivula for Vladimir Tarasenko. Because the Blues are going to be in trouble. They're going to need a lot of cap space. And for those of you who remember that kind of a move, that's exactly what we did to acquire Nick Leddy way back when. The St. Louis Blues essentially would be saving themselves $7 million in cap space, and they could retool their team that way. So I think at some point, Islander fans, you're going to see one of two things. Semyon Varlamov traded for really good assets that could turn into a winger later on, or you could see a couple of cap strap teams bomb in the first round and need to quickly retool, and that means shedding some cap space, and you could see a Nick Leddy type trade by Lou Lamoriello at the draft, and there you go. So that's coming all together here. The Islanders are still going to contend for the Stanley Cup. They're showing that right now. We need to see more of it. We need to see these regulars continue to win. If they continue to win, phenomenal. That's what you want. But if you can trade someone like Semyon Varlamov for a couple of great pieces to a team like Dallas, who's desperate to still win this year and next, and then you can eventually turn those assets into a top scoring winger, I think you do it. It's just a matter of when. And then you're going to see not only the growing evolution of Ilya Sorokin, you're going to see another level to Mathew Barzal. And then when the Islanders bring up whatever defenseman they want to bring up, folks, it's another Stanley Cup run. It is. Maybe you keep Braden Holtby. Maybe you come in and, you know what? You know what I would love to take? I'll take Jack Campbell from Toronto. Give me Jack Campbell. Give me Jack Campbell. I'll take him. I'll steal him right off of Toronto, right out of UFA. I'll give him a little more money. That's fine. He's still less than Varlamov. I would. But again, that's just speculation. So that's it. That's where we're going with this. Semyon Varlamov definitely has 4 teams interested in him. I can't tell you who because I don't know who, but he would be willing to waive his no trade clause there. So do the Islanders get a deal done now, or would they wait at the draft? But for those of you waiting for that elite winger, it could happen soon. I'm expecting the draft, but that's the first step. If you want to help Mathew Barzal, and if you want to help Ilya Sorokin, trading Semyon Varlamov right now makes the most sense, especially to a team struggling to make it into the playoffs like Vegas, like Dallas. I don't know we'd visit Washington. I don't think we'd do that. I truly think West Coast makes more sense for Varlamov. And Vegas and Texas, Vegas and Dallas make the most sense. I believe there are also no state taxes there. So, Joe could be right. He could still be going to Vegas. I'm going to throw my hat in. I'm going to say the Dallas Stars. I think he could go to Dallas. So we'll see what happens. So Having said that, I hope you guys enjoyed this segment of it. It's water cooler talk time. This is where you guys come in and any rumors, any questions, comments, concerns. What have you guys thought of the Isles this year or the last couple of weeks? Is there a team you thought was going to make the playoffs but didn't, or they're good enough to make the playoffs but they're not? Give me your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. What do we got? Any rumors? Yeah, Klingberg is off the market. Klingberg is definitely off the market here. Klingberg is out. I believe Marc-Andre Fleury is out. TJ Miller, I think he's also off the market. And from what I'm hearing, Philip Forsberg is close to re-signing with Nashville, I think. So, I still believe the Islanders are going to make a trade to grab that winger. I don't think there's going to be any in free agency. What will Dobson's AAV be this summer? I have to imagine it's going to be close to 4. I have to imagine it's going to be close to 4. Maybe 5 if it's a longer term deal. If you can sign Noah Dobson on an AAV of 5 million, why not? Could be. Just a shot in the dark. I mean, he's eventually going to be the future number 1. That's pretty clear so far. But that's another thing that the Islanders need to do. They need to find someone for Noah Dobson. They need to find someone for Mathew Barzal. And I think the Islanders can do that. So if they're all balanced, like we're starting to see right now, and then you add to the pieces, you add some of those sexy players that everyone wants, you're looking at a Stanley Cup run. You're looking at Pittsburgh Penguin-like numbers. I'm not going to lie. You're looking at over 3 goals a game. You're looking at no more than 2.5 goals against. You're looking at a solid 100-point season. It's all there. But what you also need to do is that you need to make sure you have enough players in Bridgeport who can come up and actually make an impact on this team when called upon. That's one thing that we have not talked about. Bridgeport needs to improve some of their players in terms of gaining, like in Austin Zarnik, they need more of him. They need more of that. Is Kadri going to the market this summer? And if he does, this makes sense for the Islanders? No, it doesn't. Kadri's a centerman. And Kadri's looking for a ton of money. No. Money-wise, no. But he's a second-line center. He could be a number 1 center on some other teams, but the Islanders don't need another centerman at this point. They could use another centerman down in Bridgeport with the potential of coming up every once in a while. That would be all right, but they don't need Kadri to replace Brock Nelson at the moment. Is this Thompson's last season? I think so. To be honest with you, Sean, I'm not sure. I would imagine so, but if Lou likes what he's doing, he's going to keep him. That's just the bottom line. And it'll be up to Trotz to develop the kids when they are up here. So, once again, not necessarily breaking news, but Semyon Varlamov has 4 teams available. I'm sorry, have 4 teams of interest, and he would be willing to waive his no trade clause to any of those 4 teams. So we'll see what happens. That's if he wants to go. I'm sure Lou will give him that choice. But I definitely see Ilya Sorokin taking over the reins starting next season. And by taking over the reins, meaning if he's healthy, I could see Varlamov. I'm sorry. Sorokin playing anywhere between 55 and 60 games. Solid. Is Tarasenko still upset with St. Louis? Yes. Yes. But he is playing out the contract. He's showing up. He's having, he's being a good sport about it. But I think this is going to be the last season he's in with St. Louis. And again, I've got nothing confirmed on Tarasenko coming. He's just one of those guys I feel would elevate Barzal's game to another level. Tarasenko plays the same style in St. Louis that the Islanders play. And, imagine a line of Lee, Barzal, and Tarasenko. And again, I'm going to watch very closely St. Louis and Minnesota. I'm going to watch that first round. Minnesota upset St. Louis. Time for St. Louis to do some changes. And the best thing to do that is to free up cap space. Got to do that first. Because you only got Ryan O'Reilly for maybe one more year. Yeah. Think about that. Lee, Barzal, and Tarasenko. Oh. My goodness. I'll take that. And who knows? Who knows? Tarasenko, Barzal, and Wallstrom on the line every once in a while? Why not? Tarasenko, Barzal, and Wallstrom on the power play? Oh, ha, ha. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah. Barzal would demand the puck. There's no doubt about it. But Tarasenko's shooting that stuff right into the net. So, again, I'm still high on Tarasenko. I hope he comes. He's got one more contract. He's got one more year left. And that's the thing. The Islanders don't have to re-sign Tarasenko if it doesn't pan out. And then they'd be saving themselves $7.5 million. They'd still have enough cap space. So we'll see what happens. Where do I think Clutter and Bailey go? I still think Cal Clutterbuck, Minnesota, not in any particular order. Minnesota, Colorado. With Riley Smith going on injured reserve, maybe Vegas. Who else is over there? I could see him going to the Kings. The Kings wouldn't be a bad idea. Definitely out west, though. And as far as Bailey goes, I don't think Bailey's getting traded. I don't think Bailey's getting traded. And I'm going to say this now. For me, I think if Josh Bailey were traded, I think he'd just flat out retire. I don't think he'd put on that sweater for another team. I honestly think Josh Bailey wants to retire an Islander. I don't think Josh Bailey's going anywhere. I don't. I just don't think I don't think Josh Bailey wants to play for another team. And people are going to be like, well, he can't do that. That's not fair. Of course he can. He can retire whenever he wants. He can have his agent go around to other teams and be like, look, he's not going to play for you guys. He's going to retire if he's traded. Okay? He can do that. He's allowed to do that. Here comes Joe. Bailey not going anywhere. I don't think he is. I don't think he's getting traded. And again, to back up what I've been saying before and what Gary has been preaching, Josh Bailey is nearing 1,000 games with one team, and it's the Islanders. I can't see Lou Lamoriello trading someone that loyal to a team, especially what Bailey has been going through when he first got here. Can't see it. Can't see it. I know some of you want Josh Bailey gone, and we're gonna have a little fun here. Bailey to the rafters. I don't think his number's going to get retired just right yet. I think he would go into the Islanders Hall of Fame, no doubt. I think if he retires an Islander and he finishes just below Clark Gillies, I think you have to add his name as an Islander Hall of Famer. If he wins a Stanley Cup, you gotta put that into consideration. If the Islanders win a Stanley Cup and Josh Bailey's here, does Josh Bailey's number 12 go up to the rafters? Josh Bailey has been clutch in the playoffs. He's been clutch. If Bailey is clutch in the playoffs while they're winning the Stanley Cup, I can't. It's debatable. I could definitely see number 12 going up to the rafters in that case. Yeah, Sean's a jerk. Sean doesn't live too far away from me either now these days, but he hasn't come to say hello or anything else like that. So, yeah, that's it with Bailey. I don't see him getting traded. No, I see him getting 1,000 games as an Islander. I think the Islanders, as long as they're still in it, making a Stanley Cup run, I think Josh Bailey's going to be here for the long haul. I don't think he's going to get a contract renewal, but at the same time, I think he'll retire as an Islander. So, and even though I'm a Mets fan, yeah, like Paul O'Neill was Mr. Clutch in the playoffs, and look what's happening with Paul O'Neill. He's getting his number retired in the Yankees, or did he have his number retired? I think he did already, or it's going to. It's going to be the same thing with Josh Bailey. If the Islanders win a Stanley Cup with him on it, if the Islanders don't win the Stanley Cup, I could at least see Bailey going in as a Islander Hall of Famer, but not having his number raised to the rafters. But we'll see about that. But Semyon Varlamov getting traded makes all the sense in the world. Dallas, Vegas, two desperate teams trying to make it. Their windows are closing. Dallas has this year and next year. I think Vegas has this year and next year, maybe the year after, depending on what Jack Eichel actually does with this team. We'll see how well they do. But, if you can get those pieces for a top-line right winger or a top-line winger to help out Mathew Barzal, you go for it. Great question, Michael. Have Lou and Barry 100% conceded on the season, or do they still feel there is a miracle run? Lou will always be a buyer. Okay, let's make that very clear. Lou Lamoriello is always going to be a buyer. The question is he going to be buying for this season or next season? He's going to be buying for next season. One of the things, and this is just my personal opinion, I think when he traded away Johnny Boychuk and when he was able to trade away Andrew Ladd, he cleared up so much cap space that for me, that was like a concede to the season because you could still use that cap space. You could still use that cap to go over the cap ceiling and make a legitimate run. But I think because of what was going on earlier on in the first half of the season, I think I don't want to say the writing was on the wall, but it made more sense to clear all that cap out. Because now the Islanders are going to have close to 15 or 16 million entering next season, this coming off season. So for me, I think when they were clearing the cap, I think I don't want to say concede the season, but it gave Lou another opportunity to be a buyer just in case the Islanders did make a miracle run, so that way he could be a buyer at the deadline. We'll see. I don't think they're going to make a miracle run, no. I would love to see it, but I don't think Washington is going to drop the way people are hoping to. I'm expecting Washington to go on another 4 or 5 game winning streak, and that would basically take out the Islanders in that case. And the Islanders would still have to do a lot of winning. Do I think Palmieri will continue to be hot next season like he is now? I'm honestly, thank you, Angela. I'm really hoping that Kyle Palmieri racks up between 15 and 20 goals from here on out. Yeah. It doesn't have to be 20 goals all year long. At some point, it's going to drop. For now, 17 to 22 next year, that's fine. 15 to 20 over the years after that, I'm also okay with that. I try not to nitpick each of these players because this team, for the most part, is so balanced. They're going to win and lose as a team. The system still works, and the players are showing that now. The system still works. So when Lou and Barry say they're more concerned about the wins and losses, I truly do believe that because all the pieces are here except for maybe a puck-moving defenseman and a top-line right winger for Mathew Barzal, which Lou will address probably starting next Monday. So for me, as long as the team is on a 220 plus goal scoring season, 220 goals or more, 225 would probably be better. The Islanders are going to make the playoffs as long as Sorokin is healthy. That's how I see it. So, but yeah, I think Palmieri will continue to do better, especially after this season, because last year was a roller coaster. This year, it's like his first year here. And I think players who come back after their second year, they're much more comfortable because now they have a routine. They know what to do. They know where to go. And yes, Palmieri was here the season before, but it was a COVID. It was a tough thing. So now he's going to get more acclimated next season. I think he's going to be ready. I think he's letting the game come to him now. And the rest of the team is following suit. Vegas has to do something. They're in trouble. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And the question is, how long is Robin Lehner out for? And does Lou take advantage of that? He is a perennial 20 to 30 goal scorers. This year was what it was. Yeah, for him and the whole team. Yeah, no, I agree with that. This was a sloppy first half of the season, folks. There's no doubt about it. Sloppy first half of the season. And again, are they starting to show signs of what they were last year? Absolutely. Sorry about that. And again, this is going to be a great test. You've got Washington and you've got the Rangers. I think you have Philadelphia and Ottawa. If you can take games from Washington and the Rangers, you should be much more optimistic for next season. And we've got the Rangers a couple of more times. And I think we have the Capitals a couple of more times. Watch those games with greater interest. If we can still compete with those teams, get ready for next season. Because Lou's not done. Lou's not done. Lou's already setting himself up for next season. So with Ilya Sorokin doing as well as he is, it gives Semyon Varlamov a chance to play somewhere else. And that's going to give Lou an opportunity to land more assets, to possibly land him another winger, to help Mathew Barzal grow, sprinkle in a puck-moving defenseman, And folks, you're probably looking at another Stanley Cup run next season. Maybe two. Maybe two. Two more runs with this team. Especially if it's Tarasenko. Tarasenko, you have another solid 2 years with this team making a Stanley Cup run. That's what I think. So, as far as the backup goaltender goes, I'll take Jack Campbell. That's fine. Someone like Jack Campbell, I have no problem with. I'll steal him from Toronto. That's fine. Any legitimate backup goaltender right now, that's fine. So, any other questions, comments, concerns, guys? Thank you so much for. Here we go. Michael. Do any of the kid goalies have a future as Sorokin's backup in the coming years? Skarek is improving. Skarek could be a call-up next season. I don't know if he would be a backup. Not yet. He's improved this year. He's taken massive steps this year, which is phenomenal to see. But if I really need to see a dominating performance from Skarek before I bring him up. Like, his numbers have got to be solid next season. Tristan Lennox is doing as well as he can in the Ontario Hockey League. He's on a pretty bad team this year, but he's seeing a lot of rubber, which is good. The defense is not great in front of him, but he's put up some really, really good numbers in juniors. So Tristan Lennox, for me, probably comes into Bridgeport in another 2 years. But if there's one goaltender right now, I'm really worried. Not worried, but I'm really going to take a look at hard next season. It's Skarek. There's a couple of other goalies over in Europe, but they got to get here first. Yes, Henrik Tikkanen. Thank you. Yeah, Henrik Tikkanen. He's doing all right. He's not. I need to see him play in the professionals, not in that junior level, not in that B level. Yeah, he's got to start playing in the upper tier professionals. He's doing all right, but I would be surprised if he comes over next season. Or maybe he does. Maybe he becomes Skarek's backup next season. Maybe Henrik Tikkanen comes in as a backup to Skarek next season. And then we'll go from there. He's a big boy, though. Big goalie. Big goalie. So, yeah, Salo and Bolduc. Bolduc is still a project. The best you want to see for Bolduc next season is a call-up. Robin Salo, we'll see what happens. Robin Salo should be a part of the Islander team next season. But again, another veteran puck-moving defenseman would be welcomed if Salo isn't ready to go. So we'll go from there. So thank you guys so much for coming on. Don't forget to follow follow Isles Talk on Facebook. Follow Isles Talk on Twitter. And for those of you on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. We're just trying to grow and expand Isles Talk, the knowledge, the hockey, the fun that we're all having here. Joe, Gary, and I will probably be on next week. It's the trade deadline. We'll see where we go from there. Been great talking to you guys. Thank you for coming on. And I think at some point we are going to do a show during the game where we're just talking to everybody, and probably during one of those away games. So thank you for coming on, guys. Let's go Islanders. And again, for those of you who did not know, Semyon Varlamov has four teams interested in him, and they are teams that he would be willing to waive his no trade clause to. So stay tuned to that. The trade deadline is next week. We will be on after the trade deadline around 8 o'clock, and we'll talk about everything that's been going on. So thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you next week. Let's go Islanders.